Hi, welcome to KartTV. I'm Neil Schneider, and today I'm here with Pilates instructor Chante and her lovely assistant Kai, and they're going to show us one of the most fundamental Pilates exercises, the bridge.
All right, so today we're going to be going through your bridge exercise, the difference between an articulated bridge and a hinge bridge, and the mobilization in the spine and how you connect through that. So I'm going to get Kai here to lay down on the mat. You can have your head up by this side, laying on your back. Good. So you'll lay down on your mat surface, or if you're just at home, that's fine if you want to just lay down on the carpet. So Kai's going to bend his knees here and have his feet planted firmly on the mat, about hip distance apart. And note, whenever I say hip distance apart, I'm talking about the hip bones and not the outside of the hips. So Kai has this perfectly here, they're not too wide apart, and he has a slight bend in his knees with his pelvis in neutral. Okay, so pelvis starts in a nice neutral position. His low back has its curve away from the mat. And he's gonna start with the articulated bridge. So in the articulated bridge, your focus is mobilizing through the spine, and you start with your pelvis. It's the core that moves the pelvis, specifically the lower obliques, like we discussed earlier before in our lower oblique series, moving our pelvis in and out of imprint. So Kai here is going to move into his imprint, rocking his pelvis into his belly, then peeling his knees over toes. He's going to curl his spine carefully up off the mat, sending his hips up in line with his shoulders and knees. So drop your hips just a smidge here, Kai. Good. So again, from knees to shoulders, long line. He's going to take a big breath in. And exhale, close the rib cage down and in, sending one of your vertebrae down into the mat like dominoes, one at a time. Melting through, he's gonna touch his tailbone and then lengthen back to his neutral, and you can see that leveling out sensation through his belly. So he's gonna pull up through his lower obliques again, rocking in through his imprint to peel the spine up like a reverse crunch. Knees are going over the toes to open the hip, long through to the shoulders. Inhale. And exhale, close the rib cage down and in, melting the spine down vertebrae by vertebrae, like a string of pearls touching the mat each time. And then he'll lengthen back to neutral. Good. Okay, and now we're gonna talk about the difference between our articulated bridge and our hinge bridge. So remember, we discussed before that it is the core that flexes the spine, not the glutes. So as much as this is a glute exercise, you wanna be focusing on the belly when it comes to the articulation. So with our hinged bridge, there's no focus on the articulation of the spine. Doesn't mean the core is not on, the core is gonna stay engaged the whole time, but the focus here is now gonna be on the glutes. Kai's gonna press his feet firmly into the mat, entire foot down, not just the heels, the toes as well. And then he's gonna squeeze his glutes and thrust his hips up to the ceiling or to the sky, sending your hips up, up, up. Good. Pause, take a big breath in. And instead of articulating down, he's just gonna send his tailbone heavy to tap the mat. Good, and then you'll squeeze your glutes back up to the ceiling and hinge from the hip joint to tap the tailbone. So it's like someone just attached a really heavy weight to your tailbone, and all of a sudden it's pulling your hips down to the mat, and you're squeezing just the glutes, lots of power up. So the main difference between your articulated bridge and your hinged bridge, you wanna focus on articulating the spine and mobilizing each vertebrae when you're in your articulated bridge, which then makes you focus more on your core connection. And in the hinged bridge, it's gonna connect more to your glutes. Not that the articulated bridge doesn't hit the glutes, but just a different focus. Keep in mind, if you're feeling tight when you come up to the top, through your knees and all the way through the thighs, that's normal. It's your hip flexor being in a longer position. So again, another benefit of this exercise is you are actively releasing in the hip flexors, and your hip flexors do attach from the hip to the knee. So if it does feel tight there, that's okay, that's normal. So Kai's gonna set his tailbone back down to the mat, and you can move through both of those variations, focusing on each little point in each one. So articulation, core, hinging, glutes. So those are the differences between the articulated bridge and your hinged bridge. Feel free to move between both of them, focusing on the different highlighted segments. So thanks for tuning in to KartTV. I'm Chante Grunsky, a certified stop Pilates instructor, and those are your differences between the articulated bridge and your hinged bridge.